Classic cars are just that. They're classics. And polishing the paintwork and the bright work is an art form. Let me show you how. This is a 1967 Bizzarini 5300 GT Strada. My research has shown that approximately 133 of these units were built between the year of 1964 and 1968. The last known model that sold went for $1.2 million. Now, working on classic exotics like this, it can be kind of overwhelming if you're unsure of your own skill level, but it's basically just going step by step, and I'm going to show you the safe and correct way to detail a car like this. The first step in a proper detail is to get the car clean. Now, there are two categories for washing cars. There's the prep wash and the maintenance wash. And it's important to know the difference between the two and when to use one over the other. When you're getting a car ready for paint correction, you would use the prep wash technique. After you've detailed the car and it's pristine, then you would use the maintenance wash technique. And they're very different. But for this car, we're going to do a prep wash, and I'm going to show you how I would treat a classic car that's been restored like this. When it comes to washing a car, what goes through the minds of most people is getting up early on a Saturday morning, dragging out the water hose, getting a bucket, some car wash soap and a mitt, and then washing the car. And this is perfectly fine for a modern daily driver. When it comes to classic exotics like this, especially once they've been restored, as a professional, the last thing I'm going to do is introduce running water into all the cracks and crevices and nooks and crannies where it can cause rust because I can't get into these places to dry the water. So what I prefer to do for cars like this is to use a foaming waterless wash. The benefit to a foaming waterless wash is the foam will cling and dwell to the surface of the paint where the wetting agents and the cleaners can go to work loosening, emulsifying, and dissolving the dirt and the dust so I can safely remove them with a microfiber towel. Let me go ahead and set this IK foaming sprayer up and I'll show you my technique. So there's a couple key techniques for using a foaming sprayer. One of them is only do one panel at a time, okay? And then you want to make sure you're using clean, soft microfiber towels. And in a perfect world, you only want to use one towel per panel. That way, any dirt that you collect is trapped onto this single towel. This towel is now done. And this is a key technique that I like to share. You need a clean place to put your dirty towel so it doesn't get any dirtier. The biggest culprit for inducing swirls and scratches into anybody's car under the paint is dirty, contaminated towels. So anytime you're going to wipe paint down with a towel, it's always important to look at it and then feel it with your hands and make sure there are contaminants or abrasive particles that aren't embedded into the weave of the towel that your eyes cannot see. And if you discover something like that, either pick it out or don't use the towel. Now, always start at the top, work your way down. And now that I've done the roof, I'm going to go ahead and hit the side glass. Then I'll hit the hood, the trunk lid, and then the vertical panels. Now that the car's clean, and in this case, it was just a matter of removing light dust, but it's important to start on a clean car. The next step is we want to inspect the paint to see what types of paint correction are going to be needed to restore this paint to a factory fresh looking finish. Now to do this, we're going to do it in two different ways. We're going to use a tactical test using a plain ordinary sandwich baggie, and then we're going to use the swirl finder light. The reason we use the baggie is because this thin film of plastic, it heightens your senses so you can feel what your skin wouldn't feel otherwise. When I feel this fender right here with my hand, it feels real smooth. When I put the baggie on my hand, I can feel little bumps all over the place. Now, these little bumps are contaminants that have landed on the car and bonded, and when we did the waterless wash, they didn't come off. So that tells me that the contaminants have a strong enough bond that washing is not going to remove them. So that's where we're going to use a nano clay towel to remove the contaminants. The next way we want to inspect the paint is we want to use a swirl finder light. And what the swirl finder light is going to do is it's going to act like the sun, and it's going to reveal all the swirls, scratches, water spots, and even oxidation. And as you can see, this car is completely swirled out. So this tells me I have to do mechanical decontamination. That's with the nano clay towel. And then I'm going to do some machine polishing to remove the swirls and scratches. So let me set up and I will show you how to use a nano clay towel. Okay, I've got my supplies. Now let me show you the techniques to mechanically decontaminate the paint using a nano clay towel. First, I want to just explain to you exactly how this works. This is a nano clay towel, and what it is this: on one side is cloth, on the other side is this polymerized rubber surface, and inside this polymerized rubber surface is a pulverized abrasive. Think of something like powdered sugar, something that's not gritty. But when you take and you rub this over the surface with a spray detailer, what it'll do is it'll basically abrade the contaminants off until you get down to a smooth surface, then it'll just start to glide effortlessly. Now here's a little technique I like to share with people. The way you use this is you don't lay this thing down flat and rub this over the paint. That would be ridiculous. What you want to do is you want to fold it 4 ways, and then you're going to hold it between your finger and your thumb and use it like this. But in order to get the most use out of one of these towels, here's a technique I use to let me know which corner or which quadrant of the towel I'm using as I go through my life detailing cars. I take a Sharpie marker and I basically just put a plus sign on the top of the back of the towel, and then I'm just going to mark these 1, 2, 3, 4. Now when I fold it, I will start out using quadrant 1. Here's the one side. I'll take my spray detailer, and I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to spray some lubrication up here, put a little bit onto the towel, and then I'm just going to hold this and rub it back and forth like this. Now as I start out, I can actually feel the contaminants beneath the towel and the paint. And as I keep rubbing, I can actually feel this go smooth, and that's kind of a tactical sign to me that it's time to move on to a new section. And after I finish a section, then I'll go ahead and take a clean microfiber towel and wipe this section dry. And just to kind of share the reason you want to mark this back of your nanoskin towels like that is that way, over the course of time, these will wear out. And as you notice the side with the 1 start to remove contaminants less effectively, it's probably worn out, and now I know to go to side 2. That way I get the most use out of my clay towel. So then removing the contaminants is just a matter of starting at the top, working your way down, and this is called mechanical decontamination. And the benefit to this is anytime you've got contaminants on the surface, they create surface texture. And surface texture diminishes gloss. So when you remove the contaminants, you immediately amp up the gloss because you've restored a smooth surface. There's another benefit to using a clay towel like this, and that is you remove all the contaminants, so when you're machine buffing, they don't come loose in the buffing process and they get ground into the paint with your buffing pad. Now here's a question sometimes people will ask me, hey Mike, won't buffing take off the contaminants? And the answer to that is sometimes it'll take some of them off, but it usually won't take all of them off. And the reason why is because anytime you're buffing with a foam pad, and that's what I'm going to use on this car, the foam will tend to just glide over the contaminants. It won't pull or kick them off. And so if you detect contaminants on a car like this, the best thing to do is just go ahead and do the mechanical decontamination step. Don't skip it, otherwise you're going to come back and regret it, because later on when you feel the paint, you'll feel that the buffing did not remove all the contaminants. The best way, the most effective way, is to mechanically decontaminate the paint using some form of mechanical process like this Nano clay tap. Standing back and looking at the car now after we safely washed it and then did the mechanical decontamination, I can already see the gloss is just amazing. And all we've done is remove the above surface bonded contaminants. So the foundation for the end results starts with mechanical decontamination if there's contaminants. It restores a smooth surface and then it amps up the gloss. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to test, or we're going to at least inspect the paint to see how thick it is. Now, this is an optional step. This car has been professionally restored. I'm going to trust that the painter put plenty of paint on it at the time it was in the spray booth. But what I want to do is I like to use a paint thickness gauge to make the go or no-go decision. And by that, I mean, I know it's going to automatically have thicker paint already on it. Let's just check this out. 30.6 mils. Compared to a modern car, that's a lot of paint. What I mostly use the paint thickness gauge for is I want to see if there's any thin panels. And if I discover a thin panel in this car, it's going to tell me to be either super careful or maybe only use a light polish on that panel. And of course, explain this to the customer. So let me go around and just do a couple quick measurements to see where I'm at. So after checking all the major panels on this car, what I found is this thing shows a minimum of 14 mils all the way up to 47 mils. So I don't think there's any thin panels on here. And of course, I'm going to use good products, good pads, good tools, and good techniques. So in the 30 plus years I've been detailing cars, my confidence is pretty high. I'm not going to have a problem with paint thickness on this car today. Another thing I want to do before I get started though is I want to check this to see if it's base coat, clear coat, or single stage paint. Just to be able to look at a car like this, it can oftentimes be hard to tell, is this single stage or is this a modern base coat, clear coat? So here's a quick, easy way you can tell. Use a soft, clean, white microfiber towel. Apply some polish. It would help, of course, if that's also a white color. And then you're just going to take and you're going to polish or apply this and spread this around to one of the body panels. And after just a few minutes of rubbing, you should be able to turn this over and tell right away if you've got base coat, clear coat, or single stage. And that red color there indicates this is a single stage paint job. And while I was kind of hoping for a base coat, clear coat, I did expect this car to be painted in a single stage paint because it's kind of in keeping with how these were painted when they were built the original time back in 1967, because base coat, clear coat technology wasn't introduced till about 1980. So the other thing this tells me is because this is single stage, I'm going to want to be super careful because single stage paints tend to be softer than base coat, clear coat paints. So I want to be extra careful, but I'm going to find out what it's going to take to polish this out in the next thing I do, which is called the test spot. The next step is how to correctly do a test spot. Now, I'm actually the guy in the industry that coined the term test spot, so I feel very comfortable explaining what it is, how to do it, and why it's important. A test spot is where you test the product, the pad, the tool, and your technique to a section of paint, usually a horizontal surface, something that you can look down on to make it easier to inspect before and after results. And what you want to do is you want to dial in a process that removes the defects to your expectations using the least aggressive product and process to get the job done. And the reason you want to do this is to not only remove the defects, but by using the least aggressive process to get the job done, you leave the most paint on the car. And that's a professional courtesy to the owner of this car, and that is to not overcorrect or take too much paint off for no reason at all. So let me set up and I'll show you the correct way to do a test spot. Okay, so now that I know this is single stage, that kind of helps me to pick out the tools and the pads and the products I want to use to do my test spot. Single stage paint, because the paint is actually resin with pigment in it, it just tends to be softer than clear coat, which is just pure resin. There's no pigment in the resin to adulterate it or to pollute it, or in simple terms, make it softer. There is one exception to the rule, and that is single stage white paint tends to be harder than any paint because the pigment used is titanium dioxide powder, which in and of itself is very hard, so it makes the resin or the paint very hard. But once I find out I'm working on a single stage pigmented paint that's non-white, then I know the paint is more than likely going to be very soft, or at least softer than most clear coat paints. So to do my test spot, I'm going to go ahead and use the roof here. This is a nice large flat area. It's completely swirled out, and so if I dial in a process that removes the defects here, an area that I think has some of the worst swirls on the entire car, if it works here, that means by extrapolation, it should work on the rest of the panels. So if I can test and prove my process works here, I'm good to go on the rest of the car. So when you do a test spot, you want to be on a horizontal surface. You want a panel that you can look down on to better inspect the before and after results. Also, usually the horizontal panels, so the hood, the roof, the trunk lid, tend to get the most abuse from Mother Nature. So the defects will tend to be the worst in these areas. So if the process you dial in works to remove the defects on the horizontal surfaces, you can be assured it's more than likely going to remove all the defects on the vertical panels. Okay, so the purpose of a test spot is to dial in a process in one area that removes the defects to your satisfaction, and then you're going to duplicate that over the rest of the car. If it works in this one area, it should work over the rest of the car, so you'll have uniform results and you can do the job in one go around. To do the test spot though, you want to start out with usually a foam polishing pad. So in the world there's foam polishing, there's also foam cutting and foam finishing. Now the foam cutting is pretty sharp. It's pretty sharp to start out with, so I don't want to start with this. And foam finishing pads are pretty much on the soft side. So I want to start right in that sweet spot with the foam polishing pad. The tool I'm using is the Flex Sea Beast. This is a gear-driven 8mm orbital polisher, and the reason I like this is because it's gear-driven, there will be zero pad stalling. So as I'm working around this car and I get into curves and stuff, I can go up on edge, or no matter how I hold the tool, the pad's going to rotate no matter what. That means I can get the job done faster and I can be more efficient with my time and energy. The product I'm going to do my test spot with, this is called 3D1. This is a hybrid compound polish. What that means is you can use it as a polish with a foam finishing pad, but you could also use it as a compound if you want to use a more aggressive pad like a foam cutting pad or a foam polishing pad. Another benefit to this product though is it won't stain plastic trim. And around this car I don't have plastic trim, but I've got sensitive rubber trim. And normally on a car, a modern car, I would tape off all the plastic and rubber trim. But on classics like this, experience has shown me it's better to just take your time and buff up to sensitive areas like this versus put tape on them, because when you go to pull the tape off, since you don't know anything about the paint job, there's always that risk you might pull some of the paint off. And the last thing I want to do on a $1.2 million car they only built 133 of is buy this guy a paint job. So instead of taping anything off like I would a modern daily driver, I'm just going to take my time, work around the sensitive areas, and then I won't have to use any tape. So let me do my test spot. So first thing I want to do is I just want to take and shake this up, make sure I have a nice uniform mixture. And then I'm going to place some product onto the face of the pad. And sometimes when I do these, I do a test spot, or I put down a tape line. And the idea is to buff on one side of the tape line to make it easier for your eyes to detect and see the differences in the area that you buffed and the area that's the original paint. The problem with using a tape line is, though, sometimes when you have soft paint like this, you can actually leave a line in the paint. So just to keep it safe, I'm just going to buff on the section closest to the window, and then I will inspect between the area that I buffed and the section that is like it was after we did the water swash and the mechanical decontamination. And here's another thing about the test spot. Because we don't know if the paint is super soft or somewhere in the middle, normally I would do somewhere in the range of 8 section passes. This time I'm just going to spread my product out. I'm going to do 6 solid section passes. I'm going to turn the tool off and inspect. If I've removed the defects to my satisfaction, I know that I can repeat that over the rest of the car. If not, I can always come back and add a couple more. So let's go ahead and start. First I'm going to spread my product out. So there's the area that I'm going to buff. And what I've done is I put down a nice uniform layer of the product, 3D1, which is lubricants, polishing oils, and the abrasive technology. Now I'm going to make my 6 solid section passes. I'm going to do this in a crosshatch pattern, overlapping my passes by 50%. That was 1. That's 2. Three. 4. 5, and here's 6. And there's the red paint I was talking about when I did the test for base coat, clear coat, or single stage. Very vivid red on a white pad. Nothing to be surprised about. Don't let that scare you. If you're working on a base coat, clear coat finish, and you see the color of the base coat on your pad, that's a bad sign. Okay, so after I wipe this off, the next thing I want to do is I want to grab my swirl finder light and I'm going to inspect the before and after difference. So here's the section I just did my test spot, and here is the section that is the original swirled out paint. And with 6 section passes, I've got easily 90–95% correction. So that tells me if I went ahead and bumped that up to 8 solid section passes, I'm going to be in the area that I want to be to create a show car finish on this car. And then after I've buffed out this entire car, I'm going to show you how to chemically strip the paint and install a ceramic coating. To do this work, I'm going to go ahead and continue here where I was at, and I'm going to bump it up to 8 section passes. I'll retest just to make sure, but I'm pretty confident at the level of defect removal I've gotten so far that 8's going to put me in that sweet spot where I want to be. And I'm going to start at the roof, work my way down to the horizontal surfaces, then do the vertical surfaces, and then I'll be ready to do the next step. completely perfected the paint with the paint correction process using a polishing pad and the 3D One. The next step is to prep the paint for the ceramic coating. Now, this is a process where you're trying to ensure that there are no residual polishing wells left on the paint that would interfere with the bonding of the coating to the actual paint. And to do this, 3D has a wonderful product. The category is called Panel Wipe. It is just the best wipe I've ever used. All the 3D products are awesome. But the way you do this is you just want to spray some product down onto the paint surface, and I like to do a 2-pass process. So I spray down a fairly wet layer of product, bring a clean microfiber towel, spread it around, flip to the dry side, and give it a final wipe. Now, theoretically, any polishing oils that are on the paint are now on this side of the towel, maybe some residues on this side of the towel. So I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to get a fresh towel, and what I call this is the insurance wipe. Okay, so I'm confident that's clean, but just to ensure that it's clean, now I'm going to make a second wipe, only now instead of spraying the product on the paint, I'm just going to give the towel a light mist and then wipe this section of the panel. And at this point, I'm confident that all the polishing residues are now removed from the paint. So this paint is perfectly prepared to install the coating. I'm going to keep these two separate because I'm going to go around the rest of the car after I show you how to put the coating on. Now the coating I'm going to use is the 3D Ceramic Touch. This is a spray-on coating. And anytime you're working with ceramic coatings, it's a good idea to wear some protective nitrile gloves. There's an old saying goes like this: if it's on your skin, it's in you. So I love detailing cars, but I want to keep the chemicals on the cars not inside of me. Okay, so what this product is, Ceramic Touch, this is a 1-year ceramic coating. You can get a lot longer out of it if it's a garage queen like this, but it's quick, fast, and easy to apply. Now, the product, when you spray it, it atomizes incredibly well. This is a very special sprayer designed to atomize that product. So one little burst is going to spread it everywhere. And then what you want to do is you want to take and spread that out, wait about 30 seconds, and then wipe off any excess. Now, there's a couple ways to apply it. One way would be to take a microfiber towel, fold it 4 ways, use this to spread it. The problem with that method is as you work around the car, because you've got 4 layers of thickness here, your towel's actually going to absorb a lot of your coating. So I like to do a different process. This is a specialty coating applicator. It's meant just for coatings. It's got a membrane, a plastic membrane on the opposite side of this, so the coating can only go in so far and then it won't go any further, so you don't waste any product. If you don't have one of these, then here's a system that I also use to apply my coating. It's real simple. I just take a microfiber towel. There you go. And what I did is I took and I just draw a plus sign with a felt marker. Then I took a pair of scissors and I just cut out one section. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take and put an X on this side. And this is the side my hand will go on to. Now, when I'm applying the coating, let me turn this on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of a mist of product onto this side of the towel, and this will be the side that I use to treat the entire car. If by chance I were to drop this on the ground, if it lands with the X upside down, that means the side I'm using to touch the paint doesn't get dirty, then I would pick this up, give it a good shake, and keep going because I've already dampened it with my coating. I want to keep starting this process over. I'll just waste a lot of coating. And I'm really careful and our floor is clean. So that's how this would work. So I'm just going to take and mist a little bit. You can see how that atomizes, and then watch this. So a little bit goes a long way. That's enough to do this entire roof. Now I'm going to take my microfiber towel and I'm just going to take and spread that over the surface. Work it in really good using a overlapping crosshatch pattern. I'm going to save this to go do the rest of the car, so I want to keep it someplace clean. I'm going to come back with the clean microfiber towel, wait about 30 seconds, and wipe off any excess. Now, the excess product, if you don't get it off, this is referred to as a high spot. And if you don't get it off, after about 24 hours, in order to get it off, you're going to have to compound it off. This stuff dries and sets up. This is a true ceramic coating. Okay, come down here and wipe off any excess. And this panel, this half of the hood or half of the roof is now ceramic coated. So this is a great way to get into ceramic coatings. This is a true ceramic coating. It's very much like our ceramic coating in the little tiny bottle. It's just thinned out so it will spray, make application faster and easier. Now that I've done this side, I'm going to flip over to the other side and knock out that side. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish using the wipe to chemically strip the rest of this car. Then I'll apply the coating. When I'm all done, we'll come back and take a video showing you just how amazing this paint looks. The coating is going to give it a candy-like appearance, almost like a deep, wet shine. And the cool thing about coatings is they last longer, they protect better, they make future washing and drying faster and easier. And if this guy was, or the person that owns this car were to ever get caught out in a rainstorm, Mother Nature would actually wash the car because it creates such high surface tension, nothing wants to stick to it. So when it rains, everything washes off. This car probably never be caught in the rain, but this is a great product for everybody watching this video that has a daily driver. Far better than conventional waxes or sealants. Let me finish this real quick. Here's a professional tip. If you're going to install coatings, you need a great handheld light. And the reason why is it's easy to see the top surfaces because usually you have overhead lights, but it's the vertical surfaces where if you can't see any high spots and you don't get them wiped off, they're going to solidify onto the paint and you won't be able to wipe them off. You'll have to compound them off. Now the Scan Grip comes with a little diffuser cap. And this actually helps a lot. What it does is it softens the light so there's less glare and it just highlights any high spots. Okay, I've completely went around the car, removed any high spots. There wasn't a lot. Usually they're around tiny little areas like the side marker lights or door handles, places that are not easy to quickly wipe. So that's where you usually find them. But I tell you, it's important to have a good swirl finder light. How does she look? From start to finish, I'm into this car about 10 hours. Now, my style's a little different than most people. Once I start, I don't stop. I don't take breaks. I just go till the job's completed. But keep this in mind when you get ready to tackle your own detailing project, that it takes more than a few hours to properly do a ceramic coating. And the final results that you see here, although the coating really amps up the gloss and that wet look, the secret was in the prep work, and 3D makes amazing abrasive technology. Just to recap, here's some of the things that we did. We started out with a foaming waterless wash to get the car clean. And again, as a professional, I don't introduce running water into restored cars like this where it could cause rust in the future. After that, we did the baggie test. We discovered the car actually needed to be clayed. So we used the 3D Nano clay towel to remove the above surface bonded contaminants. Then we did a test spot. We found out that the paint is single stage. You can tell right here by the color coming off the pads. And it's also soft. I was able to do 95% of the correction just using 3D1, a foam polishing pad, and the Flex Sea Beast. After that, I chemically prepared the paint for the coating using 3D wipe, and then I applied the 3D ceramic touch. And from the end results that I'm seeing here, this car is ready to put on display. One of the things I always do when I return this car back to the owner is I show them how to properly take care of it. Now, if this was a modern car, I would explain how to carefully wash it with running water. But because this is a vintage classic and it's restored and now it's completely polished out, I like to share a product with them that's very easy to use and it'll maintain this high gloss finish. This is the 3D Beat It Up. This is a polymer coating booster. It's a spray-on detailer basically, and it's very easy to use. So in the future, all the owner needs to do is mist a little on, spread it around with a clean microfiber towel, flip to the dry side, polish it off. And with this one simple product, not only can he keep the car clean, but he can keep it protected and looking like a show car all the time. All these products that you see here that I've used are available at 3dproducts.com. Not only does 3D make great products, but we pride ourselves in great customer service. If you have any questions in the future, reach out and contact me through the 3D website. For more videos like these and how-tos, subscribe to our YouTube channel.